Hello and welcome to our webinar series, IT Experts Unplugged. We are Urion Consulting and we connect you to the right IT contractor or team to get your projects done. In the IT Experts Unplugged live series, we will speak on a variety of topics with exciting speakers working in and around the IT industry. You will have the opportunity to hear about new trends in the industry and ask your questions live to our guests. Use the comments function to ask your questions to our panelists, and we will ask them for you during the Q&A session at the end. If you're having any trouble connecting to this webinar, please take a moment to refresh your browser. And with that, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dane Vignevic.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Dane. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Perfect. So Dane Vignevic is the co-founder of Digitanity, a US-based company helping IT businesses scale by employing international teams without the need of establishing a local entity. This is something very interesting that they're doing, and Digitanity is dedicated to helping businesses find the top echelon of tech talent in the areas of web and e-commerce development, UI, UX consulting, and leading virtual teams. So now we will start with a few rapid-fire questions with a brief interview to introduce the topic, and then we will go on with a discussion on the build, operate, transfer model versus the classic outsourcing for IT projects. So here's the rapid-fire questions for you. What is the build, operate, transfer model?
It's a third-party employer, basically, that builds out teams and transfers those employees to the client at a time down the road.
What are the common challenges when outsourcing IT services?
Limited control on quality, communication, and resources working on different projects.
What are a few critical factors when deciding between BOT and outsourcing in the IT industry?
Well, I guess you need to look into, are these one-time projects or is there a roadmap of numerous projects? Are you looking to offset labor costs during the course of these projects? And what level of control do you want over your production and your quality?
Name a key advantage of using the BOT model versus outsourcing for long-term IT projects.
Well, in BOT, you have more control over the timing and quality of your deliverable. BOT is managing your entire team in the backdrop. And you have an internal team at a fraction of the cost of what it takes other companies to build their own.
So classic outsourcing or BOT?
BOT hands down.
Give me an example of a situation where BOT offers better ROI than outsourcing.
Well, let's say you have multiple projects with aggressive timelines and you can't afford to lose your core team. Well, in the case of outsourcing, there really isn't such a thing. I mean, you have that core team in outsourcing, but resources get regularly rotated off of projects, regardless on your objections. Whereas BOT offers similar pricing, but you have a core team that you've hired, and they'll be there throughout the lifetime of these projects.
All right, so we're back. And after this brief introduction of the BOT model, I would like to go a little bit deeper into the matter. So just before that, I would like to encourage you to ask your questions in the chat or comments field of the platform if that you're watching us through. We will include them in our conversation as we go. So Dane, we heard about the BOT model in those rapid fire questions. That I asked you, and can you just define and explain the BOT model and the context of IT projects so that we're all on the same page here?
Well, when it comes to the BOT model, I mean, BOT, build, operate, transfer, right? A lot of companies that were typically engaging in staff aug type relationships, outsourcing type of relationships with agencies, usually did that because they were looking to offset costs, or they were looking to, have projects delivered, at a quicker pace, right? Because anytime you're looking to hire a team to work on a project, you're talking about, recruiting efforts. You're talking about finding the right people. You're talking about, anywhere from a duration of, 2 to 6 months time, and building out a team that would be able to deliver a project. And typically, when you have projects on the roadmap, you're not given the luxury of that level of time. Outsourcing and staff augmentation type of relationships were the way to go, 10 years ago and even 15 years ago, and even, as early as a few years back. Build, operate, transfer has been around for the last 15 years. It just hasn't been tapped into as much as it has recently, because of a post-COVID world. I think a lot of companies realize the advantage of being able to work with individuals across the way, right? Either internationally, somewhere in Europe or whatnot. But it's no longer having to justify why somebody has to work remote, and the advantages of it. Companies are seeing that financial advantage, immediately. And they're finding the same type of talent that they might find locally to be able to supply their project demand. Now, it's not necessarily that somebody is looking to just offset costs, compensation and payroll costs locally. They might not have the right talent locally. They might be competing with other larger competitors that are just hiring their candidates right from under them. So there's multiple different reasons why somebody might choose the BOT model, but that's essentially what BOT does, and it essentially helps you employ your own internal team. So it's not an outsourcing model or a staff augment model, although it's along the similar lines, but you're able to hire your own employees without the need of an entity. And we're essentially that back end employing these people for you, managing payroll, taxation, HR, admin, office space, team building events, where you can control, and you're managing their daily activities, you're managing their promotions and raises. They are your team. And at the end of the road of that transfer portion of the BOT, we help our clients open up their own entity and transfer those teams seamlessly under the umbrella of their own organization. But during that time when they're with us, essentially it'll show that they're employed through both Digitanity and through the client company.
That's a lot of things that you're saving companies, because I myself know what the ins and outs are of having employees and having to deal with all of those things at one and the same time. It's hectic. So definitely it takes a lot of load off the shoulders. But what are the other advantages that you can name of this BOT model?
Well, the advantages are essentially, let's say some of the advantages would be that you typically, when you are outsourcing, if we're looking at advantages between outsourcing and BOT, a lot of times when you're evaluating agencies to deliver your projects, now half of those team members might be 80% adequate to deliver that project, right? Whereas through BOT, when you're hiring these individuals, you're hiring them with specific talents and soft skills that that align with the project details, but also you're hiring people that align with the company culture. So you're getting 100% employee, an engaged employee in the BOT model, versus somebody that's just working on your project or on a job, and eventually will be working on multiple different jobs for multiple different clients. And BOT, these folks are directly employed for you, and there's a certain level of pride that they carry because they're working for that company, right?
Yeah, that is
But
important.
that's I would say that's one of the key advantages. Another key advantage is pricing model, right? So if you were to go ahead and do this on your own, you're looking at, let's say, we're talking about Bulgaria now, and in some cases, first of all, Bulgaria being a part of the EU, you have a stable governing body, but outside of that, also is the pricing margin, right? You're getting top talent for a fraction of what you'd be looking at employing folks in North America or in portions of Western Europe, and so the engineering talent in Bulgaria itself is just it's insane on where they are compared to the rest of the Balkans, for example, right? And so from that perspective, you're getting amazing talent in a BOT. But at the end of the day, if you were to do that on your own, the costs you can drive costs through the roof. You're talking about a $500,000 or more in investments, and maybe a 9-month to a 12-month duration before you actually have a team generating some type of deliverable. And through our BOT model, we can quickly help you scale up a team in as little as 6 to 8 weeks with the first core members of, let's say, 5 to 7 employees, right? And then on a monthly basis, deliver 5 to 7 more new people and start building out that team slowly. And, you're leveraging our office space, right? So you don't have to worry about, local contracts and signing long-term leases. And, you might be testing out the market. You're not sure what Bulgaria might be able to give you, right? So what we're there to do is help you test out that market at a risk-free way and not being bound by certain local legal issues or lease contracts and things of that nature.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of it.
As every country, it has its specifics, so it's normal that it's not very easy to just launch anything, and that kind of a short notice that you mentioned, a few weeks, that's amazing. As in terms of savings of time plus cost savings, so basically that's where it comes from, the cost savings, that you're employing great talent at a fraction of the cost, using the fact that Bulgaria is in the European Union, but still its labor market is not so much developed as it is for the Western European countries. So basically, this is where the cost savings comes from. What are the main challenges, though? Because we know that when outsourcing, for example, in India or in the Philippines, as it is quite modern, let's say, recently, there are challenges to that for sure. I mean, there's communication challenges, there's cultural differences, which are affecting a lot the work. So how do you tackle that kind of challenges, and what are the key challenges that you're facing when you're using this model?
Well, and I think that's you nailed it right there. That's the beauty of the challenge. When you talk about challenges in subcontracting and outsourcing type of relationships versus the BOT model. Now, first of all, in the BOT model, obviously your company's hiring team has vetted and interviewed every one of these individuals that have become essentially members of your team. So you have your own employees, and the deliverable essentially it's coming at a point where you're not working with a third party contractor or a subcontractor or anything like that. When we talk about the challenge of subcontracting and outsourcing, a lot of the times, there's certain levels of dependency that are out of your control, right? Timelines play into it, deliverables, quality of the deliverable, the resources constantly being rolled out of your project because essentially they're an outsourcing agency, right? So they're not guaranteeing you the same individual that started your project will be delivering and finishing it. They're guaranteeing you a warm body. Essentially at the end of the day, that's what it is. And those are some of the challenges that companies are dealing with. And the problem that is it's not only that, they're suffering from those deliverables or quality, but at the end of the day, it's going to infuriate leadership. It might infuriate their clients if they're doing this work for their clients. But that at the end of the day, those are some of the potential risks. And again, at the end of the day, it becomes a financial issue, because if you lose a client, or your deliverable is off by 6 weeks, all of that costs money at the end of the day. So
definitely.
those are some of the risks and the challenges, and what people are dealing with right now in the subcontracting world and outsourcing world, and where BOT can potentially resolve some of those issues.
Okay, that sounds good. So let's look at the other aspect of our topic today. So we talked a lot about the BOT model and what the benefits of the BOT model is. But can you just briefly tell us a little bit more about the defining the outsourcing and subcontracting, um, like how do they differ from internal employment and BOT? So just breeze us through the classical outsourcing and subcontracting model here and
Sure.
how it's different with the BOT model.
Well, classical outsourcing and subcontracting. Let's say outsourcing for the most part is if a company has multiple projects happening and they're looking for a long-term fix on delivering those projects. And it's not necessarily, maybe the company doesn't have an internal IT team or they don't have an entire full IT office that can manage these projects, right? So they'll contact an outsourcing agency to be able to manage all these deliverables, and they'll work with that company on a daily or weekly basis, right? They'll
Yes.
have their stand-up calls. They might even have their own project manager that's managing some of the risks from their end. But at the end of the day, this outsourcing company is managing and doing all of the work. Um, in comparison, when you look at subcontracting is almost very similar to outsourcing, but it's a short-term relationship, right? There might be one project or just a certain level of deliverables that might last a week, 6 weeks or a couple of months, and then the relationship is done. So, outsourcing and subcontracting are one and the same when it comes to the type of work that's being delivered. It's just a matter of the duration, right, of the relationship.
I see.
Um, when we talk about BOT model or the build, operate, transfer, um, it's completely different because you're taking advantage of essentially not similar pricing, but close to similar pricing as you would in an outsourcing model, but you're employing your own people. And we're helping you bring those people in the doors, right? We're managing that back end. So
I
that's
see.
that's essentially the huge difference. So at the end of the day, when you have multiple projects lining up, and leadership is talking already, they've got their 3-year roadmap out and they're talking about the projects and benchmarks throughout each one of those years, you can count on the fact that you're always going to have those people that you hired as part of those projects, and figure out where those people are going to fit in best. In an outsourcing model, it's like, hey, here's the documentation, here's everything that we came up with, we've already gone through this internally, and then you're meeting up with that client or that vendor to go through essentially a discovery for each one of those projects, right? So there's a lot of also time lag and a lot of almost running in circles, right? Because although you've done it internally, now you're going through a discovery with your potential vendor to show them what the needs are. And again, anytime information gets transferred from team to team to team to team, it's almost like dominoes, right? What was originally thought up of and discussed in the original plan can completely vary in that third or fourth or sixth discussion or that plan, right? So that's another pitfall or drawback when you're talking about outsourcing models and subcontracting versus, you have your internal team, you have
I see.
leadership that's discussed this, and you've built out a plan and how, who will be approaching and tackling which one of these projects and what part of the project they'll be working on, because they are your essentially, I would say the biggest difference is subcontracting versus having your own organization, your own internal team.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
basically, one is they're pretty much at the same cost, but one of those is just delegating the tasks one by one to an outsourced a team that you don't know anything about and you don't know what you can expect. The other one would be having your own team and having your own leader of this team, and then just building it out and doing all of the tasks through this team, which is pretty much internal. Still,
mhm.
it has the same pretty much level of costs. So, why then is the outsourcing model so popular? Is it? Can you state some advantages of this outsourcing model? What is outsourcing like suitable for? Because obviously, when it's when there are so many outsourcing companies, it's got to be doing something right.
Right. Well, absolutely. And I think that when we talk about outsourcing, again, in the beginning of our conversation, I mentioned that BOT really has not been, essentially, hasn't been widely used, although it's been out there for so long. It hasn't been as widely used as outsourcing. So there's that, right? People didn't realize that there's that third or second option of the BOT model, and and building your own internal team for similar costs as there is outsourcing. Now, the key advantages of outsourcing too is, let's say a company is not looking and will never look to hire their own internal employees, for whatever purpose, maybe, or for whatever reason, maybe the company requires a vendor to manage all their deliverables and do all their project-based work, right? We don't know what each business is unique to itself, and why they might look at outsourcing as more advantageous than hiring their own internal employees. But there is a level of flexibility with outsourcing. At the end of the day, you don't have to fire your own people. You have a slowdown, and you give your outsourcing vendor a 30-day notice to reduce the size of their team.
Okay.
So there's that. Again, there is a cost savings, and there's a larger cost savings than in BOT, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it's a cost savings in a short-term way, right?
I see.
When I talk about cost savings in a short term, let's say you were engaged with the vendor for a year or two or three, right? And you've built out a good rapport with some of the team members that have still stayed on those projects with you during the course of that relationship. But they're not your team members, right? I mean, they are your team members as far as the vendor is concerned, as far as you're concerned. But once that vendor goes away, let's say the company decides, hey, we need to start focusing on doing this internally, or we have new projects. Well, those people you might not be working with again, and you're starting from scratch, and you're reteaching individuals. Essentially, there's a lot of relearning or reteaching individuals for these engagements when
Yes.
they've left halfway through, if they've rotated them off the projects. So at the end of the day, it might be cost effective in the short term, but it's constantly costing you money to retrain individuals.
I see.
So
So, what are some common challenges that companies face when they outsource their projects to subcontractors? Just briefly, like a few of those.
Well, the challenges are might be time zone, right? That depends, where they're working. And some of that's been resolved. Obviously, we're a global, as far as the IT world is global, right? So everybody's used to working with companies across the planet. So those are typically not as bad as, let's say, I would say challenges just from first of all, finding the right people. You don't have a say in who will be operating or who will be delivering your projects. So you're just being given a guarantee that your projects will be delivered. But those challenges start from there. So the challenges are cultural differences. The challenges can be, language barrier. Challenges can be just really bad product, right? Bad deliverable. And holding those vendors, in some cases, difficult and holding those vendors accountable to these deliverables or the quality of the projects, right?
Yeah, especially when
And
they're operating under
yeah,
other jurisdictions. It's go
absolutely.
find them in India or in the Philippines. It's very tough. Okay, I would like to use this. I would like to encourage our audience to ask their questions throughout the session. We
Mhm.
are monitoring those questions, and we will be asking them to our speaker Dane Vignevic from Digitanity here. So we will continue with comparing those two. Excuse me. We will continue by comparing those two models, specifically when it comes to IT scenarios. So, can you tell us for what kind of jobs is BOT more suitable, and outsourcing, just in terms of IT projects that are
Well,
tackled by one or the other.
yeah, I'm going to sell BOT on this one because I don't know that there's a job that's not suitable for BOT. Typically, I mean, when I look at the IT arena and just the sheer spectrum of the amount of different roles that there are, um, and for example, our recruiting arm, we have a ton of experience at Digitanity. The head of our recruiting is an individual that's that has more close to 20 years experience, and she a lot of the times will help us do a market search on even new talent out there. And one thing I've noticed and realized from that is there's nothing that you can't find through a BOT model, because again, you're looking to employ people. I think it's more of a matter of geography. What's not available in, for example, Bulgaria, that's available in another country in Europe or in the US, right? I think that's a better question than saying what role can't be employed through BOT versus outsourcing. I think that would be the question. I would say that BOT is a lot more flexible when it comes to offering various and specific roles within organizations. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with an example of roles that are unique, but I mean, a couple years back, data scientists were just at that point starting to emerge as a need within IT units or organizations, right? It wasn't something that was really looked at 7 or 8 years ago, although it was good having a data scientist, but not something that said we need somebody as that would be a core member of our team, right? Whereas now it's the case. And just like with emerging technologies, you're always looking at engineering talent that have specific technologies or certifications that you might not have looked at 3 and 5 years out, 5 years ago. So the fact that constantly changes, some of the times you can't find that in outsourcing, because again, unless an agency or an outsourcing agency is saying, oh gosh, we really need to look ahead and start finding data scientists, and even though they're going to sit on the bench for the next 6 months to a year, we need to have them because that's something that our client might need. So those are some of the things. I think the level of flexibility that you can find in BOT versus typical outsourcing. Again, I'm not putting it down, but I'm just saying that there's another option out there that's a little bit more flexible.
So artificial intelligence, here we come.
Exactly.
The new type of talent that a lot of companies would be looking for.
Yep.
It's kind of a staple word recently. So
it is that when you look at, I think I read a Shopify article a couple of days ago, and they're talking about the trend of e-commerce this year is going to be in B2B. Now we know that B2B has been that's been trending upwards every single year, but there's going to be a huge focus on B2B this year again. So that again opens up an avenue of different types of engineers that companies might not have been looking for in the past. And again, yes, AI for sure, right? So
yeah, definitely. So can you give us some real life examples of clients that have used BOT, the BOT model successfully, just what they did and how they implemented it somehow?
Well, we, for example, we're working with an online school, and they support 60,000 students online, right? And they came to us a couple years back. Gosh, it's been at least 2 years ago, closer to 3 years ago. And they were looking for a team of Java engineers that would support the back end of this platform. So for them, and it was, when companies are in a hurry, they're in a hurry. We need this yesterday. And as much as you'd love to help the yesterday, all you can do is assure them that we're doing everything that we can and find these individuals. Now, we weren't sure how long this was going to take, but the sheer amount of folks that we were able to recruit and bring into this team on such a short notice. And again, they were interviewed by our clients, right? So it's not like they were like, here you go. But we delivered them a substantial amount of CVs along with the first interviews we had with all of these candidates, gave them bullet points of, what salary expectations would be,
some of their projects that they've been on in the past, what their notice period requirements are, just, your high level sanity check questions that you would perform on a first interview, and deliver them over. And they already had a team of 7 people, delivering something in the 6th week of our engagement. And now that team has risen to, I believe we have 15 or 16 people as part of that team, but we also now have QA as part of that team. We have, manual and testers. We have, there's multiple different roles that are being employed into that organization now, just because we started, with a very successful engagement from finding these first 6 or 7 individuals that were Java engineers. I would say that's, and again, a lot of people ask us, well, who are the people, or who are the companies that would be looking for such a need, or who are the types of companies that you would help as far as size wise? And, we are helping companies that are in seed funding, to series funding, to companies that are established, but are looking to test out the market in that portion of the world, and they're just not sure of it, or companies that are looking to add, that region as a new area to sell into, but they will need local engineers to be somewhere in Europe, right? So there's a various amount of reasons, or various amount of types of companies that work with us. But I would say that anybody who's looking to employ a team of 1 to 30 or 40 people should evaluate the BOT model, especially if they're not sure of the market, especially if they're not even, they don't have any brand awareness in the area, because that's where we can help them. These candidates might not know who this company is, but they know who we are. So there's a lot of different companies out there that we're working with. Some companies have a few thousand people already, and other companies have 15 employees that are looking to grow their business. So
it's suitable for both big and small companies.
Sure. I would say your entry level to mid is where we work best with companies. Any enterprise company is going to say, they're going to throw millions of dollars at that, and perform that market study on their own, right? And try it out and see if it works over the course of a year or two, and then just do their P&Ls at the end of the year and say, well, you know what, we lost 10 million here, so we're not going to go back, right?
Not a cool scenario.
For companies that are entry level and mid, they still follow a certain level of profit, and are allotted a certain level of budget for employing talent during the course of the year, and those are the people we can help.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're pretty much at time, and I wanted to direct us towards the Q&A session. I will ask you one final question just to wrap up the entire topic, and then we will go to the questions that we got from our audience. So can you give us some tips on what to look for, what to look at when choosing a BOT service provider? So what are the key things that that a company should be watchful about when looking for a partner that is using the BOT model?
That's actually a good question, because a lot of the times we'll talk to folks that are either, they're obviously evaluating us with other companies. And things that we've heard in the past is that evaluate to see if they actually offer the transfer option of that BOT. Because they might be employing your individual, your employees, but either make it very difficult for them to transfer them over to you, or not even have that option. So make sure that, that would be one, right? 2 would be that they have, do they have their own recruiting team, or are they just outsourcing recruitment? Find out what the placement fees are, really evaluate pricing wise. Does this make sense for you with that particular vendor? What are the monthly ongoing fees? How much are the transfer rates? Let's say 2-3 years down the road, what will it cost for them to transfer those team members over to the umbrella? Because there is that transfer rate,
Yeah.
That's why you're not paying these 20% recruiting fees up front. Those are some of the things to look into, and really, where are they located? Do they offer office space along with that? What do their team building events look like for the employees? And
That's
what
motivation, it's quite important.
absolutely. I mean, this is something that we're constantly working on. We did something last week, which is pretty cool. But we're constantly doing something with our teams to motivate them and keep them happy. So those are some of the things that I would suggest asking.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, so to wrap up, I would like to direct everyone to the Q&A session. So I am again encouraging everyone to ask their questions using the option that you've got on the platform where you're watching our live stream, and just comments, and we will get these questions, and we can ask them live now to Dane, who can answer those questions right away. We've got some questions already, so I will start with the first one by Daniel Velev. So he's asking us, how fast could Digitanity set up a team of 5 full stack developers? Can you give us?
That's so basically we would need to understand, what tech stack we're talking about and seniority level. But typically, we can build out a team of full stack developers in a matter of 6 to 8 weeks time, where you've already hired them, and they're already generating some type of deliverable on that first day of work.
Yeah, that sounds fast. So especially for that kind of specialized IT people, it's pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next one comes from a store here. Is BOT cheaper than outsourcing in the long term? So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how the pricing of the entire service is organized. Like maybe you can make even a parallel between how it's organized in the classic outsourcing model and how it's organized with the BOT model.
I would say that, in the long term, BOT is cheaper than outsourcing. Obviously, short term, outsourcing is cheaper, right? But long term wise, and especially if you're looking at the end of any outsourcing relationship, all you have left is your deliverable, but you don't have those employees anymore. Yeah. So you're stuck looking for new employees that are going to be delivering, your next projects. So from that perspective, I would say it's cheaper because you're not retraining individuals and whatnot, right? From that perspective, I would say it's cheaper. That would be my comparison, I guess, because you're looking at either employing somebody or just giving an organization to do the work for you. So
I see. Sounds great. Daniel has some a follow-up question for us. So how much would it cost per month for such a team?
Well, that all depends, right? So we talk about when we're interviewing these folks, we're getting their salary expectations. Typically, whatever their salary expectations are is what we deliver to our client. And on top of that, we have a flat rate markup that we charge, which is, it's a part of what we're charging for the office space, for the team building events, for, we also pay an additional cost to, on top of the healthcare that our employees get from the government, we also pay a privatized healthcare for them. We pay for their, social happiness, essentially, right? So they have fit passes to local fitness centers and the team building event. All of this costs money. So that's rolled up into our flat rate markup. We don't charge a percentage of whatever the individual is going to be making. But on average, let's say one, a senior level engineer with their salary expectations and our cost might run, 6 to 7K euro per month. Again, this is high level, and we really don't know what that cost is going to be. We don't know what the technology is or how new the technology is. We might be looking for Flutter engineers instead of Python engineers. We might be, right? So it really depends on what we're looking for, what their salary expectations are. But we have a very lean markup. And if pricing is something that somebody wants to learn more about, I encourage them to reach out to me. There's no expectations there, but I would absolutely love to share more about what our markups look like, and and our essentially our hiring cost, which we don't charge anything up front. We don't. We only charge for any successful hire, like any recruiting agency would be. But I would say that on average, if you're looking at recruiting agencies charging 20% for a yearly annual gross, I would say ours is closer to, depending, because it's a flat rate, but then I would say it's like 2.5 or 3%, right?
Yeah,
All we're charging is for the cost of the marketing efforts and the outbound efforts that we're paying to bring in these, qualified individuals.
Yeah, that definitely makes a big difference. And mentioning the options to contact you, I would like to also say that there is a link to a calendar in the description of the webinar on wherever you're watching this live stream. So you can just reach out directly with this Calendly link. Just schedule yourself a call so that we can contact you back from your own consulting, and you can just tell us what your needs are, and we can, of course, make a connection with Dane Vignevic here to just to speak in details about your specific needs. We got a final question here with which I will wrap up. Can you tell us a little bit more about the fun part? How do you keep those guys motivated? We all know that in the IT industry, a lot of people could be called quite spoiled, let's say, but still, motivation is a big thing in this industry, because it's not only in this industry, but any industry. I mean, if you're not motivated, you're not delivering well. So if
Right.
you're delivering well, no one is happy. Now, so how do you guys motivate the teams that you're building?
Well, the team building events, we had, I think last year we had hiking on Vittische Mountain. We're constantly organizing things in the office space. We had, there was a time once where we had a barista come and, create all kinds of different customized coffees, and we had a masseuse come out. We recently had an event at a hotel, I believe it was last weekend, where we invited a film crew over, and all of our employees participated in creating a short movies, right, and competing, right, and then at the end they were getting, they were like at the awards, right, and receiving awards. So it's a constant. It's one of those where, like, our recruiting team takes a lot of effort also, and they're spending time in from an HR perspective to not only when they're recruiting them and bringing them in, but also keeping them happy and talking to them and gaining a certain level of understanding of, if they're dealing with anything in the background, but also trying to understand what would make them happy. What could we possibly do? What type of new idea could we come up with? So that was one of the ideas that our head of recruiting, Mariana, came up with, was this film crew thing, and I thought it was brilliant. And these are some of the things that we want to come up with. I'm not saying that they're game-changing ideas or anything, but just keeping it fresh and keeping it new, and showing our employees that we do indeed respect and everything that they're doing for us, because they are part of our family, right? But trying to come up with events like that is it takes a lot of effort, but it's definitely the outcome is definitely well worth it when you see our employees participate and generate a level of productivity at the end of the day for their client, for their employers. They're true employers, right?
Sounds like a lot of fun. So yeah, I would definitely be. You got me hooked. I am interested in joining your team.
Absolutely.
All right.
You're more than welcome.
It was a real pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure that we all learned a lot of new things with you and with this new BOT model, that new old, let's say, BOT model that you guys are applying very successfully from the US. And also bridging the gap between the US and Bulgaria, because it's a lot of hours, but despite that, I see that you guys are keeping your people motivated to really deliver great results for the companies that you are working with. So I I would like to thank you very much for your participation, and thank everyone for staying with us for this episode of IT Experts Unplugged. To all of the business owners, directors, C-level officers, this is your chance to start your BOT business. So you can register for a free call to assess if the BOT model fits your business by clicking on the Calendly link in the description of this webinar. So just go ahead and do that, and you will be able to get a call from our experts in order to talk specifically about your needs and about your business model. With that, I would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and we look forward to seeing everyone again for our next webinars that are coming up next month. Thank you, Dane, and have a great day to everyone.
Thanks, Dheeraj. Have a great day, everyone.